Alright, let's talk more about the Nikon ZR, which we are shooting on right now in a studio environment. We've got the window back here so you can see how the dynamic range. Obviously, I got a light in front of me to balance this out. Before I get into the tests, we will be shooting on the Nikon ZR, A7S III, and the Canon R6 II. Those are the only cameras I own, but the results are very interesting. But anyway, before we get into that, I want to talk about these tests with Cine D and Gerald Undone and these lab tests that probably are deterring people from buying this camera, which I think sucks because this camera is my favorite camera now. It just the image that it produces, it looks like cinema. It blows my A7S III to the curb and my Canon R6 II. Also pre-ordered the Canon R6 III. I'm excited to check out the dynamic range on that, but there's just something about the sensor in the image that it produces with the R3D that even comparing it to the Lumix S12, which I really like that camera, and I would have bought it if it didn't overheat. There's just something about this camera, the visual image, that I think it's the best camera out now. Whether you want to say the dynamic range sucks on it, I don't think it does. I actually think it's really good in doing real world tests, not lab with xylitone and all that stuff. This camera checks all the boxes for me. I've always wanted a red camera, but there's things that stopped me from buying that. First off, I didn't want something that was heavy that I would have to rig out. And just, I also like hybrid cameras. I like something that you could do photos with. This camera does have a Z6 III sensor in it, so I'm able to do photos of it. I'm not crazy about the photos, but I'm also using Sony E-mount glass with the Mega Dap. And I don't know if that has to do with like the sharpness and it not doing great pictures in low light. So I still have to do tests with that with Nikon Z glass just to see if it's better. But I do really like the image of the Tamron 28-75. I've always loved it, even on my Sony A7S III. And then bringing it over to this camera, I just love it. I love the look of it. So here are the things that it checked off, right? To comparing to a red. First off, red cameras, from everything that I've seen online, they just suck at low light. You get them to 800 ISO. Anything past that, they start to really get grainy. And I know that has to do with it being raw, but still, like with this camera, I can get it up to 6400 ISO and it looks good. It still looks good, depending on the situation. Like if it's completely dark, obviously it's going to look grainy, but that's with all cameras. So the other thing is it has IBIS. It's not the greatest IBIS, but it's a step up from Sony with their microjitters. I believe it's under Canon. Everybody raves about Lumix. I have to do more testing with those cameras, but I really like the IBIS on the Canon R6 too. So as for this also, autofocus. The red cameras don't do autofocus. The Komodo X's, yeah, I know that the newer ones with the Z mount do it, and it's pretty good. But again, it doesn't do photos. What are some of the other things? This camera is small. It's compact. I could throw it in my bag, go on vacation, do whatever. I could do photos and video. I was worried about the battery life. I thought the battery life's not going to be good because it's these smaller Nikon batteries. But in testing it at my son's soccer games, it's actually just as good as my Canon R6 II's batteries. I was completely surprised at leaving the game with the battery being at like 25%, shooting for over an hour and 20 minutes with with photos and video. It blows my Sony A7S III away on battery life, which I'm totally disappointed with that. Especially if you do the 2. Was it the 3.0 update where you get all the new stuff and you lose, like, everything gets smaller, like the exposure, which sucks on it too. So don't update to that if you have a Sony A7S III. Just it's not worth it. Anyway, let's get to these tests just so I can show them to you. So I'm going to jump on my Mac and we can see the results. And you guys can make your decision. But I think you're going to find it very interesting. Okay, so let's do this. All right, so we are going to go over this footage here. And we will start with the R6 II. And I'm going to do this in real time, so you guys, I'm not going to just color grade it or do all that stuff. I want you guys to see my process of what I do, because I've been making videos for a while now, and I don't say anything. So this is DaVinci Resolve, and we're going to do the color space transform. Before we get this going, I just want you guys to see my color management settings. So you can take a snap of this. Somebody sent me or had a video out there that showed exactly what to do when it comes to getting the best color space transform for Mac. And you got to have the Rec 709-A. So normally when I'm color grading my Nikon footage with like the IPP2 red LUTs, I will be more in a setting like this, and that just kind of flattens everything out and makes it easier to drop in any LUTs on it, and it works perfectly. So let's go back to my default, and for this, the Canon R6 II, we're going to drop in the footage on the CST on the footage. And for my input color space, I will do Canon Cinema Gamut and then Canon C-Log 2 or C-Log 3, sorry. And as you can see, not bad. I mean, we do have some clipping here going on, which we could go in here and I can bring some of this down. Now, my face is, you know, not the greatest here, as you can see. The autofocus was not doing that great in this. Did not like this. But anyway, I usually, when I try to bring up the face without the rest of this, I don't do the highlights or anything like that. I use the gamma. The gamma brings up the detail more in the face here. So you could bring it up to about that, and then so that's about where I'm at, where this window, it had a little bit of clipping. I was like just a little bit exposed over 0 on it. Normally I expose 1.7, but in this situation you're going to do perfect exposure. So it's not bad. I mean, as you could see, there's very minimal noise, a little bit of noise in here, but you could see the detail. It's not the greatest, so maybe the gamma could come down a little bit on this. Let's bring it down just a little bit. Okay, maybe 5. Don't push it past 5. But as you could see, there is a little bit of noise. You can always clean it up with noise reduction. Now this is 12,800, so the last clip was in 1600, and I believe I had it at 50 shutter speed. Then I went to 12,800, and I think I had it at like 320 shutter speed rather than using an ND. So we'll do the same thing, drop in the color space transform, and we'll do Canon Log 3. So this is not bad, right? And you can see the detail, a little bit blown out on the window. So let's see if we can take down yeah, it's pretty much you know, it's not good. Still bring up the face detail if I wanted. So it's not bad. It's a little bit noisy. You could probably, like I said, fix this in noise reduction. All right. Moving on to the Sony A7S III. Same thing. This was 12,800. I believe I had it like 200 shutter speed because I didn't want to use an ND. So we will pick the Sony S Gamma 3 Cine, and then we're going to go to S-Log3. So as you can see, this is its normal. So let's see if we can bring up the face details. The window's pretty good, so definitely showing better. There's a little bit of clipping here, which we can bring that down. And then we can bring up the detail on Gamma. So it's okay. Like in these situations, this is the problem with mirrorless cameras. They just don't do very good. And that's why I wanted to do this test to show you how the Nikon ZR does, which I was actually very surprised. And I need to cut that hair right there. So anyway, let's move on to the Nikon ZR, which I did several tests. So Nikon ZR 200, you don't have to do color space transform when you have it in this format right here. So with this, it's looking bad. So we have camera raw, which we get to control this. And let's bring this up, 6400. Can't see detail there. Let's go all the way to 1600. So this is 1600. And this, like I said, is 200 low ISO. It's very clean. Autofocus was working good. The window actually looks better than the A7S III and the Canon R6 II. And I have pretty much same detail. Let's go up to 2500. So now we're having a little bit of noise here, but still better than the Sony A7S III. So okay, let's bring this down to 2000. So not bad. Like I said, it's pretty good. And we can even go in here and go in and start to try to bring down the highlights, which it does a little. It's not much. Pretty much would just go with what your camera raw is doing. So anyway, I would use this setting if you're going to ask me. We're going to go through the other ones, and you'll see why. That I would not use the highs. So 1600, it's not very good. Let's bring this up to 6400 at its max, right? And you can see here it's not that good. The window looks a little bit better than the low, but there's no detail in the face. And the noise is there. It's a little bit of noise, but I still think it's better than the A7S III and the Canon R6 II. So let's go into, and even if you push this up to like 8,000, now the noise is a little bit better. Not better, it's a little bit worse, I mean. And then if you go to 12,800, or let's go to 10,000, now you're starting to really see the noise. It's not good. Even the 12,800, which is not good. There's very few situations that I would ever use 12,800. I'd have to have really good lighting. But for 6400, it's second native ISO. I think this is pretty good. But let's see if we could take it even a little bit further, and let's bring up the gamma here to see if that adds any noise. We'll bring it up to 10. Yeah, can't do it. You're pretty much kind of stuck at that. You could You don't really need to bring down the highlights because the window looks good. And then even 6400, it's native. I I can't really push it any more than this, and it just, I mean, the window looks great, but the rest looks terrible. Let's see if I go up to 12,800, what it does. Yeah, it's garbage. You can't use this. It's not good. So, what we've learned here today, and I've learned because this is the first time I've ever tested this kind of test with dynamic range, is that if you don't have light for the front of your face and you're exposing for a window, your best results for low noise is going to be the lowest on the low ISO setting at 200. So probably even use an ND filter, but in this case, I don't think I would. I think this is like the best you're going to get. But in comparing this to the Sony A7S III, right, let's look at this right here, and we'll look at the Nikon. I like the Nikon more. I think it doesn't look as faded out. We'll do it with the Canon R6 II. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit more detail in this, but it just, I don't know, the Canon R6 II looks pretty good. The Sony A7S III is probably my least favorite, which is funny because it's low light king and I'm not seeing it. So let's go back to my favorite. Yeah, it's a little bit darker on the face. There's more detail there for sure than the Canon and the R6 II. I mean the R6 II and the A7S III. So if you ask me, these real world tests mean more to me than Cine D and Gerald Undon's test. This is what you're going to run up against. If you're in bad lighting or you need to really push the dynamic range, the Nikon ZR 200 or the 200 low ISO is the way to go in this situation. That's what we've learned here. Last thing I will say is, like, if you don't have to deal with, lights in the background and your face doesn't have a light on it or anything, then you would want to use the high 1600 going up to 6400. Okay, so we looked at the results, and of what I have to say is that I'm very surprised actually at the image with the Nikon ZR. I think that it's a camera that you have to learn. You can't just figure out, okay, well, I'm going to use 12,800 here for low light, and then in the sun I'm just going to use 100. It doesn't work that way with this camera. It's tricky because you have a low sensor and you have a high sensor. So for low light stuff where you're not doing anything like this, where you don't have a light in front of your face, as you could see with the results, I would actually use the low ISO using 200 and expose for the window. It's just better for some reason. It works better. But if you're doing like running gun where you're walking around the house or trying to do different shots. I was doing this shot at this library downtown in San Jose, and I was walking through the library, and I believe that I had it at 6,400 ISO or maybe 4,000, but I was on the high ISO setting. And it looked great walking through. I was able to adjust stuff. Even the lights up at the top look good. So you just have to get used to the scene. I don't know if this could be a run and gun camera. I think it could be if you learned it and learned what it could do. But I honestly, in my tests, with this being raw, and this is real world tests, we're not doing the Gerald Undone and Cine D tests. We're doing, can this, what's the dynamic range compared with a window, right? It's like, how far can I push this? And as you've seen in my tests, I'm not using any LUTs. I probably could actually use the IPP2 LUT on it and push it even further because it's such a soft LUT on it, that it just, I could probably, yeah, push it further on the face and get more detail. But I just wanted to show you with using the color space transform and making it even with the A7S III and the Canon R6 II to where these land. Now, I understand Cine D and Gerald Undone, they have higher stop dynamic range on these tests for these other cameras compared to the ZR. But we're talking raw video. It's not doing any noise reduction. It's not doing anything. It's raw video. With the A7S III and the Canon R6 II, it's doing stuff in there with noise reduction. There's a lot going on there to where it allows it to have more stops of dynamic range. So I am very happy with this camera. I think this camera is amazing. I just wish that the photography was a bit better for it. And I'm hoping that when I get some Nikon Z glass, that will change and I'll have more sharpness and low light. But I really can't push this thing past like 3200 ISO. It just doesn't look good. You have to have the right lighting for photography with this, you know, or daylight, right? But doing any like night shots and stuff, if I'm going to go out and I know that I'm going to do video and photography, I'm probably going to reach for my R6 II out of all of my cameras. Just because I like the way it handles noise reduction. I love the photos at night with it. And it's just pretty much my favorite camera when it comes to run and gun and hanging out. But this camera right here, the Nikon ZR, is kind of one of my dream cameras because I feel like I have a red camera now that checks all of the boxes. Like I said, it could shoot in low light. It does autofocus. It has IBIS in it. It could do photography. And on top of that, I can use my Sony lenses with it with the mega depth. So it really is an amazing camera, and for the price, for $2,200, nobody should be complaining about this camera. If you're thinking about getting it, go get it. Like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.